My name is Madison Parker, and at 28 years old I thought I knew exactly who I was in my family, the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who would drop everything to help everyone else. After 2 years of pandemic separation, I was beyond excited to finally head home for Christmas. That is, until I accidentally joined our family video call a few minutes early and overheard my siblings and parents cheerfully planning to use me as their personal holiday babysitter for 9 kids while they enjoyed themselves. What they didn't expect was that for once in my life, I would change my plans. Before I tell you how I completely turned my holiday around, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if family drama is your guilty pleasure like mine once was. Growing up in the Parker family, I learned early on that being the middle child meant finding your place in the chaos. My older sister Sarah was the achiever, my older brother Brian was the charmer, and my younger sister Emma was the baby who could do no wrong. That left me as the peacemaker, the responsible one, the one who could always be counted on to step up when needed. It was a role I accepted and even embraced, taking pride in being the glue that often held our family together through holidays, crises, and celebrations. As we all grew into adulthood, our family dynamic mostly stayed the same, even as our individual lives expanded. Sarah married her college sweetheart and had 3 energetic kids, twins Lily and Lucy, who were 7 and 5-year-old Jacob. Brian and his wife had 2 boys, Mason, 9, and Ethan, 4, who were absolute tornadoes of energy. Emma, despite being the youngest, married early and had 4 children in quick succession: Ava and Zoe, 8 and 6, followed by 3-year-old Ryan and 1-year-old Grace, 9 kids total, all of whom I adored as their doting Aunt Madison. Unlike my siblings, I had chosen to focus on my career. After years of hard work, I had just been promoted to senior marketing executive at one of Seattle's fastest-growing tech startups. The job was demanding, often requiring late nights and weekend work. But I loved the challenge. My vacation days were precious and carefully saved, which made this Christmas trip all the more significant. When the pandemic hit, it was the first time in my adult life I hadn't gone home for the holidays. 2 years of video calls and mailed presents couldn't replace the feeling of being together, the scent of my mom's cinnamon rolls on Christmas morning, the way my dad would sneak Baileys into everyone's coffee when we opened presents, or the chaotic beauty of all the cousins playing together while holiday music filled the house. I missed it desperately and was willing to spend a significant chunk of my savings and limited vacation days to make this reunion special. The Christmas planning started in early November. I purchased thoughtful gifts for everyone, spending hours finding the perfect items that showed how well I knew and loved each family member despite our time apart. I booked an expensive direct flight to avoid travel complications. I even requested 2 full weeks off work, something I'd never done before, to make the most of our family time. The infamous video call happened exactly 2 weeks before my scheduled flight. It was supposed to be our final coordination call, discussing who was bringing what dishes, finalizing the gift exchange details, and planning activities for the kids. I was running a few minutes late due to a last-minute meeting at work, and when I clicked to join the Zoom, no one noticed my name appear in the participants list. They were all too engrossed in their conversation. I saw them all arranged on my screen: my parents in their kitchen in Ohio, Sarah with her husband in their living room, Brian driving home from work. I immediately worried about his distracted driving, and Emma bouncing her youngest on her knee. They looked happy, comfortable, connected. For a moment I felt a pang of being the outsider, the one who'd moved away and built a life separate from the tight-knit family unit they maintained. Then my mother's words cut through my sentimental feelings. "So we're all agreed that Madison will watch the kids Christmas Eve? The neighbor's party starts at 7, and I don't want to be late this year." My father nodded. "She's always good with them, plus she doesn't drink much anyway, so it makes sense." "I was thinking we could do our adults-only gift exchange that night too," Sarah added. "After the kids are in bed, Madison can handle bedtime for all of them, right?" "Of course she can," Emma said with certainty. "She's super organized. She'll probably even come up with some craft to keep them busy while we're gone." Brian laughed. "Remember last Christmas when she was here? She watched all the kids so we could go to that movie, 9 kids, and she didn't call once." "That was 2 years ago," my mother corrected. "Last Christmas was virtual." Right, Brian waved dismissively. "But she's good with them, better than any of us." I sat frozen, finger hovering over the unmute button, unable to believe what I was hearing. They weren't just discussing one night of babysitting. As the conversation continued, their plans unfolded. They had scheduled a full itinerary of adults-only activities throughout my visit, all assuming I would happily take care of the children. "I need Madison Thursday too," Sarah chimed in. "There's a spa day I booked for us girls. but obviously someone needs to watch the kids. Wait, Emma interjected. I was going to have her help with my Christmas shopping on Thursday. I can never shop with the kids along. Can't you do your shopping Wednesday? Sarah asked. I thought Madison was going to help Mom with the baking that day while we get our nails done. My mother smiled and Douglanded at the screen. Madison won't mind. She loves the kids and has no life anyway. We haven't seen her in 2 years. She'll want to help out. The casual dismissal of my existence outside of their needs hit like a physical blow. Has no life anyway. The words echoed in my head as I watched them continue to parcel out my time without a single consideration for what I might want during my vacation. She's so predictable, Brian said with a chuckle, always happy to step up. Remember when she skipped her senior prom to babysit for Sarah? That was different, Sarah defended, though not very convincingly. I had an emergency at work. Still, Emma added, it's nice having someone so reliable. My kids absolutely adore her. She'll be exhausted by the end of the visit, my father acknowledged, but we all deserve a break, and she doesn't have kids of her own to worry about. That was the moment I knew something had to change, not because I didn't love spending time with my nieces and nephews, but because my family had completely lost sight of me as a person with my own needs, desires, and limited vacation time. I took a deep breath and pressed the unmute button. Hi everyone, sorry I'm late. The abrupt silence was deafening. 5 pairs of eyes widened in horror as they realized I had been listening. Madison, my mother finally exclaimed, her voice artificially bright. How long have you been there? Long enough, I said quietly, fighting to keep my voice steady. Long enough to hear you've planned my entire vacation for me. Sarah jumped in first with a weak laugh. We were just spitballing ideas, nothing's set in stone. Really? Because it sounded pretty detailed to me. I couldn't keep the hurt from seeping into my voice. Apparently I have no life anyway, so why bother asking what I might want to do during my vacation? Honey, that's not what I meant, my mother backpedaled. I just meant you're not tied down with kids like your siblings. So my time is less valuable? I used most of my vacation days for this trip, days I could have used for an actual vacation. Brian had the decency to look ashamed. Look, we appreciate you, Mads. We just know how good you are with the kids. I love the kids, I said firmly, but I also love being treated like an adult whose time matters. Emma's eyes had filled with tears. We didn't mean to take advantage. Didn't you? I asked softly, because it sounded like you've been doing exactly that for years. An uncomfortable silence filled the call. My father cleared his throat twice but said nothing. My mother's smile had become fixed and brittle. I think I need some time to think about all this, I finally said. Let's talk later. I clicked the leave meeting button before anyone could respond, and the sudden silence in my apartment was both a relief and incredibly lonely. I had just created the most awkward family situation possible right before Christmas, and yet a small part of me felt something unexpected relief. The moment the video call ended, my phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from Sarah, Brian, Emma, and my parents all poured in at once, but I couldn't bring myself to read them yet. I sat motionless at my desk, replaying their conversation over and over in my mind, each repetition bringing new waves of hurt. Madison won't mind, she loves the kids and has no life anyway. My mother's dismissive words cut deepest. I'd built a career I was proud of, maintained close friendships, volunteered regularly at a local shelter, and even dated occasionally, though admittedly not very successfully. Yet in my family's eyes, my life was so insignificant it could be casually discarded to accommodate their plans. I grabbed a bottle of wine from my kitchen, not bothering with a glass, and curled up on my couch. The city lights of Seattle twinkled outside my window as evening settled in, so different from the rural Ohio landscape where I'd grown up. I'd moved here 6 years ago for the job opportunity of a lifetime, and while my family had been supportive on the surface, they'd never truly understood why I'd choose a career over staying close to home like my siblings. Finally, I forced myself to look at their messages. Sarah, Madison, please don't be upset. We weren't trying to take advantage. We just miss you and want the kids to spend time with you. Call me? Brian, come on, Mads. You know we appreciate you. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it like that. You're the best aunt ever and the kids adore you. Please don't be mad at us. Mom, honey, I think you misunderstood what we were saying. We just thought you'd want to spend time with the children after being away so long. Your father and I are looking forward to having you home. Dad, your mother feels terrible. We all do. Let's talk this through like adults. Not one of them actually acknowledged what they'd done or that they'd been wrong. Not one message contained a genuine apology for planning to use me as free childcare for my entire vacation. Instead, They were all trying to minimize my feelings or suggest I'd simply misunderstood their intentions. I took another swig of wine and found myself thinking about last Christmas, the virtual one. I'd spent hours on video calls with each of the kids, reading them stories, playing virtual games, helping them decorate cookies from afar. I'd put so much effort into maintaining those connections despite the distance. Meanwhile, my siblings had used those calls as opportunities to take breaks, often leaving the room entirely while I entertained their children. And it wasn't just during the pandemic. 2 Christmases ago, when I had last visited in person, they had indeed left me with all 9 children to go see a movie, a last-minute request I'd agreed to because I wanted to help out, but that wasn't the only time. There was the quick shopping trip that turned into a full-day spa excursion. The afternoon I was supposed to help my mom bake cookies that somehow became me alone baking with all the kids while mom and my sisters went to lunch with their friends. Every holiday followed the same pattern. I would arrive excited to participate in family activities, only to find myself watching children while everyone else enjoyed adult conversation, relaxation, and fun. I couldn't remember the last family gathering where I'd been treated as anything other than convenient childcare. The realization was like ice water in my veins. This wasn't new behavior, it was just the first time I'd caught them explicitly planning it in advance. For years, they'd been taking advantage of my willingness to help, my love for the kids, and my reluctance to create conflict. My phone rang, displaying my mother's name. I sent it to voicemail. It immediately rang again. Sarah this time. I silenced it completely. Tears streamed down my face as I allowed myself to feel the full weight of how my family saw me. Not as Madison, the marketing executive who had fought her way up in a competitive industry. Not as Madison, who volunteered at animal shelters and ran half marathons. Not even as Madison, their daughter and sister, who might want to relax and enjoy the holidays after 2 grueling pandemic years. No, to them I was Madison, the convenient babysitter, the reliable one they could count on to sacrifice her time without complaint, the one with no life anyway. I found myself wondering what would happen if I simply canceled my trip. The thought both terrified and exhilarated me. I had never stood up to my family like that before, had never even considered it. My role as the accommodating middle child was so deeply ingrained that challenging it felt almost sacrilegious. My phone buzzed with a text from Brian. Mom's really upset. You need to call her and fix this. That was the moment something inside me snapped. Why was it my responsibility to fix a situation they had created? Why was my mother's upset more important than my own? The double standard was suddenly painfully clear. I remembered my last therapy session before the pandemic, when Dr. Winters had gently suggested I might be enabling my family's behavior by never setting boundaries. You teach people how to treat you, Madison, she'd said. If you never say no, they'll never learn to stop asking. At the time, I'd dismissed her concerns. My family loved me, they didn't mean to take advantage. But now, hearing them so casually discuss their plans to use my vacation time without any consideration for my feelings, I couldn't deny the truth in her words. My phone buzzed again with an incoming email, a promotional message from a travel website advertising last-minute winter getaways. The universe couldn't have provided a clearer sign. I opened my journal, flipping through pages of past entries until I found what I was looking for. 2 years ago, right after my last family Christmas, I'd written, someday I want to spend Christmas in a mountain cabin, somewhere with snow and a fireplace, where I can ski during the day and read by the fire at night. No schedule, no obligations, just peace. I stared at those words written in my own hand, describing a Christmas that sounded magical and restorative, the exact opposite of what my family had planned for me this year. My tears had stopped. In their place was a growing sense of clarity and resolve. For the first time in my life, I was going to prioritize my own needs over my family's expectations. I was going to change my plans. The silence of my apartment pressed in around me as I sat with my decision half-formed. My phone had finally stopped buzzing with incoming messages, as if my family had collectively decided to give me the silent treatment for my defiance. The irony wasn't lost on me. Outside, Seattle's characteristic winter rain tapped against my windows, creating a soothing rhythm that contrasted with the emotional storm inside me. I wrapped myself in my favorite blanket, the one I'd had since college, and tried to process the tsunami of feelings washing over me. Anger came first, hot and unfamiliar. I was angry at my family for their presumption, angry at myself for allowing this pattern to continue for so long, angry at the years of holidays spent catering to everyone else's needs while setting my own aside. That anger quickly gave way to hurt that cut bone deep. She has no life anyway. The casual dismissal of my existence outside of their needs replayed on loop in my mind. did they really see me that way, as nothing more than a convenient resource to be used when needed? The thought made my chest physically ache. Disappointment followed in them, but mostly in myself. I'd spent my entire adult life trying to be the perfect daughter and sister, anticipating everyone's needs, smoothing conflicts, making sure everyone else was happy, and what had it gotten me? A family who saw my time as less valuable than their own. The worst feeling, though, was the creeping suspicion that this pattern extended beyond my family. How many times had I stayed late at work to finish a colleague's project? How many friends had I allowed to vent for hours about their problems without ever sharing my own? How many dates had I endured with men who talked endlessly about themselves without asking a single question about me? My therapist's words from our last session echoed loudly. Madison, you're a chronic people pleaser. You've built your identity around being helpful to others, which isn't inherently bad, but when you never prioritize your own needs, you teach people that those needs don't matter. I'd nodded politely at the time, thinking she was exaggerating. Now I wondered if she'd seen what I'd been unable to recognize in myself. My phone lit up with a text from my younger sister. The kids are going to be so disappointed if you don't come. Ryan's been talking about Aunt Maddie's Christmas cookies for weeks. The emotional manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. Emma knew exactly which buttons to push: my love for the kids, my desire not to disappoint them, my guilt over living so far away. In the past, it would have worked perfectly. I would have immediately backpedaled, apologized for overreacting, and recommitted to whatever plans they'd made for me. Not this time. I set my phone aside without responding and reached for my laptop instead. The travel website's promotional email had mentioned winter cabin rentals. On impulse, I navigated to their site and searched for available properties over Christmas. Most were booked. Of course, it was only 2 weeks until the holiday, but on the third page of results, I spotted a luxury cabin in Aspen, Colorado, available for the exact dates I had planned to be in Ohio. The previous renters had canceled due to a family emergency, and the property had just been relisted that morning. I clicked through the photos with increasing excitement. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking snow-covered mountains, a stone fireplace dominating the living room, a modern kitchen where I could try those elaborate recipes I'd been saving, a hot tub on the deck, a master bedroom with a king-sized bed and its own fireplace. It was perfect. It was also astronomically expensive, nearly 3 times what I'd budgeted for my Ohio trip, but my year-end bonus had just been deposited, and after 2 years of pandemic living with minimal expenses, my savings account was healthier than it had ever been. For a brief, terrifying moment, I imagined telling my family I wasn't coming home for Christmas. The disappointment, the anger, the guilt trips, the accusations of selfishness. Then I imagined waking up Christmas morning in that beautiful cabin, making myself a cup of coffee and watching the sunrise over the mountains, spending the day skiing or reading or doing absolutely nothing if that's what I wanted. Not having to negotiate 9 different children's schedules or accommodate everyone else's plans. Just peace, freedom, joy on my own terms. Before I could second-guess myself, I entered my credit card information and booked the cabin. The confirmation email arrived seconds later, making it real. I closed my laptop and took a deep breath. The anxiety I'd expected to feel was surprisingly absent. Instead, I felt something unfamiliar, a sense of lightness, of possibilities opening before me. I had just committed to spending Christmas alone for the first time in my life. And rather than feeling sad about it, I felt liberated. My phone rang again. My best friend Natalie. This time I picked up. "Hey, what's up?" I tried to sound casual, though my voice was still rough from crying. "Your mom just called me," Natalie said without preamble. "She wanted me to talk some sense into you. What's going on?" I laughed humorlessly. Of course she did. I proceeded to tell her everything: the video call, the hurtful comments, the years of being taken for granted, and finally, my impulsive cabin booking. When I finished, the line was silent for a moment. Then Natalie said, "It's about damn time, Madison." "What?" "I've been watching them take advantage of you for years," she said bluntly. "Remember when you flew home for Brian's birthday last year and ended up babysitting the entire weekend while everyone else went bar hopping? Or when Emma had you change your flight to stay 3 extra days because her nanny quit? You always drop everything for them, and they never seem to appreciate it." Her validation was like a balm to my raw emotions. "So you don't think I'm overreacting?" "Hell no," Natalie said emphatically. "The cabin sounds amazing, and you deserve a Christmas that's actually about what you want for once." "I'm going to have to tell them," I said, the anxiety finally creeping in. "They're going to be so angry." "Probably," Natalie agreed, "but that's not your problem. Their feelings about your decisions are their responsibility, not yours." After we hung up, I opened my email and began composing a message to my entire family. I spent over an hour crafting it, trying to find the right balance between assertiveness and kindness, between standing my ground and burning bridges. Dear family, I've been thinking a lot about our conversation earlier today. Hearing you all discuss plans to use me as childcare throughout my visit without ever consulting me was deeply hurtful. It made me realize that somewhere along the way, my role in our family has become less sister-daughter and more unpaid babysitter. I love you all and I adore the kids, but I also value myself and my limited vacation time. After much reflection, I've decided to change my holiday plans this year. I've booked a cabin in Aspen for Christmas and will not be coming to Ohio as planned. This isn't about punishing anyone or creating drama. It's about me finally recognizing that my needs and desires matter too. I hope you can understand that, even if you're disappointed or upset initially. I'll be sending gifts for everyone, especially the children. I'm happy to schedule video calls with the kids on Christmas Day so I can see their reactions and still be part of the holiday in some way. I love you all and hope we can have an honest conversation about family dynamics when emotions aren't running so high. Love. Madison. I read it over 3 times, then hit send before I could lose my nerve. Within minutes, my phone exploded with incoming calls and messages. I turned it off completely, deciding that whatever their reactions were, they could wait until morning. That night I slept better than I had in months. Morning brought the clarity that sometimes only a good night's sleep can provide. I woke feeling surprisingly calm, even knowing that when I turned my phone back on I would be facing a barrage of reactions to my email. The decision that had seemed so impulsive the night before now felt right necessary, even. I made coffee, opened my blinds to let in the weak December sunlight, and finally powered up my phone. As expected, it immediately began buzzing with notification after notification. 15 missed calls, 27 text messages, 9 voicemails, 3 separate family email threads. I took a deep breath and began sorting through them, starting with the text. Sarah, is this some kind of joke? You can't just cancel Christmas. Brian, way to drop a bomb on everyone. Mom's hysterical. Hope you're happy. Emma, the kids are going to be heartbroken. How could you be so selfish? Mom, Madison and Parker, call me immediately. This is completely unacceptable. Dad, your mother is very upset. We need to discuss this as a family. The voicemails followed the same pattern: incredulity, anger, accusations of selfishness, and demands that I reconsider. Not one message acknowledged my feelings or the validity of my decision. Instead, they all focused on how my choice affected them, their plans, their emotions, their expectations. I was halfway through the 3rd family email thread when my phone rang. It was Sarah. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. Have you lost your mind? She demanded without preamble. You can't just bail on family Christmas to go skiing. Good morning to you too, Sarah, I replied, keeping my voice deliberately calm. Don't give me that. What is this really about? Is this some passive-aggressive punishment because we asked you to watch the kids a few times? I took a steadying breath. It's not punishment, Sarah. And it wasn't a few times. You all literally planned to use me as childcare for my entire vacation without even asking if that's what I wanted. Oh please, she scoffed. It's not like we were going to make you watch them every minute, just when we had other things planned. Things you never bothered to include me in, I pointed out. The adults-only party, the spa day, the shopping trip. Did it ever occur to any of you that I might want to be included in those things too? You know the kids love spending time with you, she countered, deftly avoiding my point. And I love spending time with them, but I'm more than just Aunt Madison. I'm a person with my own needs and desires, and I've decided to prioritize those this year. By spending Christmas alone, that's just sad, Madison. The condescension in her voice ignited a spark of anger. Actually, I'm looking forward to it. I've wanted to spend Christmas in the mountains for years. This feels like the perfect opportunity. Mom is devastated, Sarah said, changing tactics. She cried all night. I'm sorry to hear that, I said sincerely, but her feelings about my decision are her responsibility, not mine. Sarah gasped. Who even are you right now? This isn't like you at all. Maybe that's the problem, I said quietly. Maybe it's time I started being a little less like the Madison everyone expects and a little more like the Madison I want to be. The conversation ended shortly after, with Sarah still angry and me surprisingly unmoved by her attempts to make me feel guilty. Similar conversations followed with Brian, Emma, and finally my mother, whose tearful recriminations would have devastated me in the past but now seemed manipulative in a way I'd never allowed myself to recognize before. By mid-afternoon I was emotionally exhausted but still firm in my resolve. I opened my laptop and began researching activities in Aspen. There was a Christmas Eve cooking class where participants learned to make a gourmet holiday meal, a guided snowshoe hike on Christmas morning, spa packages, skiing lessons for beginners, wine tastings. The possibilities were endless, and for the first time in my adult life I was planning a holiday entirely around what I wanted to do. I was deep in the process of booking a skiing lesson when my phone rang again. Expecting another family member, I was surprised to see my boss's name on the screen. "Madison, I just got the strangest call from someone claiming to be your mother," Kevin said, sounding confused. "She wanted to know if there was any way to cancel your vacation time since apparently you're no longer using it for a family emergency as you claimed." I closed my eyes in mortification. "Kevin, I am so sorry. I did not ask her to call you, and I absolutely did not claim a family emergency when requesting time off." "I figured as much," he said dryly. "I told her our employees' vacation time is their own business, and I couldn't discuss your schedule with her." "Thank you," I said, still cringing at the thought of my mother calling my workplace. "I appreciate that." "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone softening. "Sounds like there might be some family drama going on." I hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I've decided not to go home for Christmas this year. My family isn't taking it well." "Ah," he said, understanding immediately. "Well, for what it's worth, I think everyone deserves to spend their hard-earned vacation time however they want. You work harder than anyone on the team, Madison. You deserve a real break." His support meant more than I could express. "Thanks, Kevin, that means a lot." After we hung up, I received an unexpected text from my Aunt Rachel, my mother's younger sister who lived in California and rarely participated in family events. "Madison, your mother called me in a state about you canceling Christmas. Knowing my sister, I'm guessing there's more to the story. Wanna talk?" Rachel had always been the family outlier, the one who moved away, pursued her career, and generally lived life on her own terms. We weren't particularly close, but I'd always admired her independence. I called her immediately. "So," she said after I'd explained the situation, "you finally stood up to the Parker family steamroller. Good for you." Her approval was unexpected. "You're not going to tell me I'm being selfish?" Rachel laughed. "Honey, if they're calling you selfish, it just means you've stopped being their doormat. Trust me, I know. I was the family babysitter for years before I finally moved 3,000 miles away." "I had no idea," I admitted. "You went through this too?" "Why do you think I only come home every few years?" she asked dryly. "Your mother and our other siblings did exactly the same thing to me that your siblings are doing to you. I was single, so clearly my time wasn't valuable." "How did you handle it?" I asked, hungry for guidance from someone who understood. "Not as naturally as you," she admitted. "There was a lot more yelling involved. But eventually they figured out I was serious about my boundaries. The relationship is different now, more distant in some ways, but healthier. I'm actually treated like an adult when I do visit." Her words gave me hope that standing my ground now might lead to better family dynamics in the future, even if the short-term consequences were painful. That evening my father called. Unlike the others, his tone was thoughtful rather than accusatory. "I owe you an apology, Madison," he said, surprising me completely. "I've been thinking about what you said in your email, and you're right, we've been taking advantage of your good nature for years." His unexpected acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you for saying that, Dad." "I won't pretend I'm not disappointed you won't be here," he continued, "but I understand why you made this decision, and I'll work on helping your mother and siblings understand too." "I appreciate that more than you know," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Just promise me one thing," he said. "Don't give up on us completely. We're not perfect, but we do love you." "I know," I assured him. "I'm not giving up on anyone. I'm just trying to find a healthier way to be part of this family." After we hung up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My father's understanding didn't magically fix everything, but it gave me hope that at least one family member was willing to see my perspective. That night I was added to a new family group chat titled Christmas Crisis. The messages were flying fast and furious as my siblings and mother tried to figure out how to handle all the children without me there. Who would watch the kids during the Christmas Eve party? How would they manage the Christmas morning chaos? Who would help with Christmas dinner? The irony was almost comical. In trying to demonstrate how much they needed me, they were actually confirming everything I'd said about being treated as the family babysitter rather than a full member of the family deserving of enjoyment and inclusion. I quietly removed myself from the chat and focused instead on packing for my trip: warm sweaters for cozy evenings by the fire, workout clothes for snowshoeing, a special outfit for Christmas dinner at a restaurant I'd reserved. books I'd been wanting to read for months but never found the time for. With each item I placed in my suitcase, my excitement grew. This wasn't just a vacation, it was a declaration of independence, a statement that my time and happiness mattered. Whatever happened with my family, whether they eventually understood my perspective or continued to see me as selfish, I knew I would return from this trip changed in fundamental ways. I was finally putting myself first, and it felt both terrifying and absolutely right. The week leading up to my departure was like navigating an emotional minefield. My family cycled through various strategies to change my mind, each more desperate than the last. My mother's approach was a combination of cold silence and tearful guilt trips. After her attempt to manipulate my boss failed, she left me a voicemail that still haunts me. I never thought I'd raise a daughter who would abandon her family at Christmas. I don't even know who you are anymore. Her words were designed to wound, and they did, but not enough to make me reverse my decision. Sarah took a different approach, positioning herself as the reasonable mediator. Look, everyone overreacted, including you, she said during one of her daily calls. Why don't we compromise? Come for Christmas Eve day, then go to your cabin for New Year's. When I gently declined, explaining that I'd already paid in full for the cabin and couldn't change the dates, a small white lie, her reasonable facade crumbled. The twins made you special presents in school, she snapped. How am I supposed to explain to them that Aunt Madison cares more about skiing than seeing them? Brian's tactics were more direct. You need therapy, he told me bluntly during his call. This level of selfishness isn't normal. Something's clearly wrong with you if you think spending Christmas alone is better than being with family. When I pointed out that prioritizing my own needs occasionally hardly qualified as a psychological disorder, he scoffed. The Madison I know would never do this. I don't even recognize you anymore. Emma, always the most dramatic of my siblings, vacillated between rage and despair. One day she would text that I was dead to her, the next she would send photos of her children looking sad with captions like Ryan asking why Aunt Maddie doesn't love him anymore. The manipulation was so transparent it would have been comical if it wasn't so painful. The extended family got involved too. Cousins I barely spoke to throughout the year suddenly had strong opinions about my Christmas plans. My grandmother called to tell me I was breaking my mother's heart. Even my mother's bridge club friends apparently discussed my selfish behavior at their weekly game. According to the family grapevine. Through it all I maintained my resolve, though not without moments of doubt and guilt. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was making a terrible mistake. Times I almost called to say I'd changed my mind, that I'd come home as originally planned. But each morning, I woke with renewed certainty that I was making the right choice, not just for this Christmas, but for the future of my relationships with my family members. My Aunt Rachel became an unexpected source of support during this time. They're escalating because your boundary scares them, she explained during one of our now regular phone calls. If you stand firm on this, they'll have to confront the way they've been treating you. It's easier to paint you as the villain than to look in the mirror. Her insights helped me understand the dynamics at play and strengthened my resolve to maintain my boundary despite the emotional cost. 3 days before my scheduled departure for Aspen, I received a text from my aunt that made me laugh out loud. Your mother just called to inform me I'm no longer welcome at her house since I'm encouraging your rebellion. Congratulations, you've gotten us both excommunicated from the Parker family Christmas. I immediately called her. I'm so sorry you're being dragged into this. Rachel laughed. Are you kidding? This is the most entertaining family drama we've had in years. Besides, now I have an excuse to spend Christmas with my friend Maria in San Diego instead of freezing in Ohio pretending to enjoy my sister's dry turkey. Her levity was exactly what I needed amid the emotional storm. I still feel terrible that you're catching heat because of me. Madison, listen to me, she said, her voice turning serious. What you're doing takes incredible courage. I wish I'd had the guts to set boundaries when I was your age instead of waiting until my 30s. Yes, it's causing conflict now, but in the long run, this is the only way to have healthy relationships with your family. If they ever speak to me again, I said ruefully. They will, she assured me. The dramatics will die down eventually, and the ones who really love you will adjust to the new normal. That evening I was surprised by a call from my father. Since our last conversation, he'd been notably absent from the campaign to change my mind. Your mother doesn't know I'm calling, he began, which immediately put me on edge, but I wanted to check in on you. This can't be easy. His concern brought unexpected tears to my eyes. It's been pretty awful, I admitted. I never thought setting one boundary would cause this much chaos. That's how it goes in families sometimes, he said with a sigh. You change the dance steps, and everyone trips over their feet for a while. Do you still think I'm doing the right thing? I asked, suddenly needing his reassurance. There was a long pause. I think you're doing what you need to do, he finally said, and I respect that, even if it's not what I would have chosen. Your mother and siblings, they're having a harder time seeing it that way. I've noticed, I said dryly. They love you, Madison, we all do, but you're right that we've taken advantage of your good nature over the years. I just hope this doesn't create a permanent rift. That's not what I want either, I assured him. I just need to be treated like an equal member of the family, not free childcare. I understand, he said, and I'll keep trying to help the others understand too. His call gave me a glimmer of hope that at least one relationship might emerge from this conflict stronger rather than damaged beyond repair. The next morning I woke to discover I'd been removed from the main family group chat. My sister Emma sent a private message explaining, Mom said seeing your name in the chat was too painful right now. We're going to give you some space since that seems to be what you want. The exclusion stung, but I also recognized it for what it was, another attempt to make me feel like an outsider for daring to set a boundary. Instead of reacting, I channeled my energy into packing and finalizing details for my trip. That afternoon my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a child's voice came through, Aunt Maddie. My heart melted instantly. Jacob, is that you, buddy? My 5-year-old nephew confirmed. Mommy said you're not coming for Christmas. I sat down, trying to figure out how to explain a complex adult situation to a kindergartner. That's right, Jake. I'm going on a different trip this year, to the mountains. Are you mad at us? He asked in a small voice that nearly broke my resolve. No, sweetie, not at all, I assured him quickly. I love you so much. Sometimes grown-ups just need to take different kinds of trips. But who's gonna help us make cookies for Santa? He asked plaintively. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You know what? We can make cookies together on video chat. I'll show you my special secret ingredient, okay? Okay, he agreed, sounding somewhat consoled. Mommy wants to talk to you now. Before I could protest, Sarah came on the line. Sorry about that, she said, not sounding sorry at all. He's been asking about you nonstop and wouldn't take no for an answer. The manipulation was so transparent it made me angry. Using your son to guilt-trip me is a new low, Sarah. He asked to call you, she defended. I'm not using anyone. Right, I said, not bothering to hide my skepticism, just like I'm sure you didn't suggest to him that I might be mad at him. Her silence confirmed my suspicion. Don't do that again, I said firmly. Don't put the kids in the middle of adult disagreements. It's not fair to them, and it won't change my decision. You really have changed, she said, sounding genuinely surprised by my directness. Maybe I'm just finally letting you see the real me instead of being whoever you all need me to be, I replied. After we hung up, I was shaking with a mixture of anger and resolve. Using the children to manipulate me was crossing a line, but it also strengthened my conviction that I was making the right choice. This pattern of emotional manipulation needed to end, and apparently it wouldn't stop until I forced the issue by standing my ground. The day before my flight to Aspen, I received a surprising message from my 12-year-old niece Lily. Unlike the call from Jacob, this appeared to be genuinely from her, sent from the iPad she'd gotten for her birthday. Hi, Aunt Madison, Mom doesn't know I'm messaging you. I heard them talking about you not coming for Christmas and being selfish, but I wanted to say I think it's cool you're going skiing instead. Sometimes I wish I could do what I want for Christmas too instead of what everyone else wants. Can you send pictures of the mountains? Her message brought tears to my eyes, but unlike so many tears I'd shed over the past week, these were healing rather than painful. In her innocence, Lily had validated my decision in a way the adults in my family couldn't or wouldn't. I will definitely send you lots of pictures, I promised her, and maybe someday when you're a bit older you can come with me on a special aunt-niece ski trip. That would be awesome, she replied, adding a string of skiing and snowflake emojis. That small exchange gave me unexpected peace. No matter what happened with the adults in my family, the connections with my nieces and nephews remained important to me. I spent the evening carefully packing the gifts I'd bought for each child, arranging to have them delivered on Christmas Eve along with handwritten notes expressing my love and promising video calls on Christmas Day. I went to bed that night feeling more certain than ever that I was making the right choice. Yes, there would be consequences. Some relationships might be permanently altered, but for the first time in my life, I was honoring my own needs and desires rather than sacrificing them for others. Whatever happened next, I knew I would never go back to being the Madison who could be taken for granted. As I drifted off to sleep, I realized I was actually excited for Christmas, a pure, uncomplicated excitement I hadn't felt since childhood. Tomorrow I would board a plane not to Ohio and family obligation, but to Colorado and a holiday entirely of my own making. The thought filled me with both trepidation and exhilaration, the perfect emotional cocktail for the beginning of a true adventure. The Aspen morning greeted me with a stunning tableau that looked like it had been lifted directly from a Christmas card. Overnight snowfall had dusted the pine trees surrounding my cabin, and sunlight glinted off the pristine white landscape, creating a dazzling display outside my windows. Inside, the cabin was even more beautiful than the online photos had suggested, spacious yet cozy, with rustic wooden beams overhead and a stone fireplace that dominated the living room. I stood on the deck, coffee mug warming my hands, and took a deep breath of the crisp mountain air. For the first time in weeks, the tightness in my chest, the physical manifestation of family conflict, had eased. Here, 3 states and thousands of feet in elevation away from the drama, I could finally exhale. After breakfast, I decided to explore the neighborhood. The rental company had mentioned that the cabin was part of a small community of luxury homes, most owned by wealthy families who only visited occasionally. I bundled up against the cold and set out along the plowed pathway that wound between the properties. I hadn't gone far when I noticed an older couple struggling to clear their driveway of snow. Without thinking, I crossed to offer help. "Thank you, dear, but we're fine," the woman said with a warm smile. "Gerald insists on doing this himself, though his back disagrees." Gerald, a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes, leaned on his shovel. 50 years of marriage, and she still thinks I can't handle a little snow. The easy affection between them made me smile. "I'm Madison," I introduced myself. "I'm renting the Pinecrest cabin for the week." "Ah, the Jacobson's place," Gerald nodded. "I'm Gerald Cooper, and this is my wife, Eleanor. We're some of the few year-round residents here." "Are you visiting family for Christmas?" Eleanor asked. "No," I said, the single word containing volumes. "I'm actually here alone, for a solo Christmas." I expected the usual reaction: pity, confusion, or the awkward assumption that I had no family to visit. Instead, Eleanor's face lit up. "How wonderful! Our first Christmas alone together without the extended family circus. Was our favorite holiday ever, wasn't it, Gerald?" Gerald nodded. 1975, we told everyone we had the flu, spent the whole day in our pajamas eating chocolate and watching old movies. "You lied about having the flu?" I asked, amused by the sweet elderly couple's rebellious past. "Sometimes you have to create space for joy on your own terms," Eleanor said with surprising wisdom. 50 years together and we still take it just as Christmas every few years. The family has learned to adapt. Their understanding was like a balm to my soul. "My family is struggling with my decision," I admitted. "They always do at first," Gerald said knowingly. "Give them time. The good ones come around eventually." We chatted for a few more minutes before I continued my walk, their words echoing in my mind. Create space for joy on your own terms. It was exactly what I was trying to do. Back at the cabin, I changed into workout clothes for my first scheduled activity, a beginner's snowshoeing class. The small group consisted of myself, a father-daughter duo from Texas, and a young married couple from Seattle. Our guide, a cheerful woman named Tanya with sun-weathered skin and boundless energy, led us along a trail that offered breathtaking views of the surrounding mountains. "First time in Aspen?" Tanya asked as we paused to catch our breath at a particularly scenic overlook. "First time anywhere alone for Christmas," I admitted. Instead of the expected sympathy, she grinned. "Welcome to the club. Some of us prefer mountains to mistletoe and family drama." Her casual acceptance made me laugh. I'm definitely seeing the appeal. By the time we returned to the trailhead, I had exchanged numbers with the Seattle couple, who invited me to join them for après-ski drinks the following day. The simple ease of making connections without the weight of family expectations was refreshing. That evening, I attended the Christmas Eve cooking class I'd booked. In a state-of-the-art kitchen at a local culinary school, a renowned chef guided 8 of us through preparing a gourmet holiday meal: roasted duck with cherry sauce, truffle mashed potatoes, haricots verts with almonds, and chocolate soufflé for dessert. The group was diverse: a middle-aged woman writing a cookbook, an elderly man learning to cook after his wife's passing, 2 gay couples celebrating their first Christmas together, and a college student whose flight home had been cancelled. "Why spend Christmas alone in Aspen?" the student Zoe asked me as we whipped cream for our souffles. I gave her the abbreviated version of my family situation. "That's bodice," she declared, her eyes wide with admiration. "I can't even tell my mom I don't want to go to midnight mass without a 3-day guilt trip." "Trust me, there's been plenty of guilt," I laughed, "but also a lot of unexpected freedom." After class, we all sat down to enjoy the meal we'd prepared together. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by laughter and the clinking of wine glasses. These strangers, all spending Christmas Eve away from traditional family gatherings for various reasons, created a temporary community bound by shared experience. Back at the cabin, I built a fire and video called Natalie as promised. "Merry Christmas Eve," she exclaimed when her face appeared on my screen. "How's the solo adventure?" I gave her a virtual tour of the cabin, ending with the view of the snow-covered mountains from my deck. "Wow," she brayed, "that's straight up magical. How are you feeling about everything?" "Honestly, better than I expected," I admitted. "I keep waiting for the crushing loneliness to hit, but so far I just feel peaceful." "That's because you're finally giving yourself what you need," she said wisely. "I'm so proud of you, Mads. Standing up to your family took serious guts." "Speaking of family," I said, "have you heard anything?" "They've been radio silent since I left." "Your mom called me again," Natalie admitted. "She wanted to know if I'd heard from you and if you seemed regretful about your choices." I told her you were having the time of your life. "Was that true, or were you just defending me?" I asked, suddenly uncertain. "Look at you," she said softly. "I've never seen you this relaxed during the holidays. You're glowing, Madison. This was absolutely the right choice for you." After we hung up, I realized she was right. Despite the family drama, despite spending Christmas Eve essentially alone, I felt more at peace than I had in years. There was no one to please but myself, no expectations to meet, no role to fill. I could simply be. My phone chimed with a series of incoming texts, my nieces and nephews sending Christmas Eve messages, likely orchestrated by my siblings as their gifts from me had been delivered earlier that day. Despite the complicated adult dynamics, seeing their excited faces in the photos made me smile. I responded to each one individually, promising video calls the next day and assuring them that Santa would find them all. I was about to turn in when my phone rang with a video call from my father. "Merry Christmas Eve, sweetheart," he said when I answered. He was sitting alone in his study, away from the family gathering I could hear in the background. "Merry Christmas Eve, Dad," I replied, surprised but pleased by his call. "I wanted to see how you're doing," he said, "and to show you something." He turned his phone camera toward the mantelpiece where the family stockings hung. Among them was mine. They hadn't removed it as I'd half expected they might. The gesture touched me deeply. "Thank you for that. You're still part of this family, Madison, even when you're not physically here," he said earnestly. "I want you to know that." "That means a lot," I said, fighting back tears. "How is everyone?" "Managing," he said with a wry smile. "Your mother's putting on a brave face, but I know she misses you. The kids are excited about Santa, and your siblings are figuring out the childcare rotation for tomorrow." I laughed. "I bet that's going well." "Let's just say there's been some negotiation," he chuckled. "But it's good for them. They're adults, they can handle it." His understanding made my heart swell. "I love you, Dad." "Love you too, kiddo. Enjoy your mountain Christmas, you deserve it." After we hung up, I stepped onto the deck one last time before bed. The night was clear and cold. Stars sprinkled across the velvet sky in a way they never appeared in the city. In that moment, I felt a profound connection not just to the natural beauty surrounding me, but to myself. The Madison who had always put others first was still there, but she was now balanced by a Madison who understood her own worth. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear. I made myself a festive breakfast, pancakes with strawberries and whipped cream, crispy bacon and miasamas before opening the few presents I'd brought along. Natalie had slipped a package into my suitcase when I wasn't looking, a luxurious cashmere throw with a note that read, "For cozy cabin nights. Proud of you, Zonette." My scheduled ski lesson wasn't until afternoon, so I spent the morning on video calls with my nieces and nephews as they opened their gifts from me. Their excited faces and genuine thanks reminded me that my relationships with them existed independently from the complicated dynamics I had with their parents. The ski lesson proved to be another unexpected highlight. My instructor, Ryan, was patient and encouraging as he taught me the basics on the bunny slope. By the end of our session, I was cautiously making my way down the gentle incline without falling, which he assured me was impressive for a first-timer. "What brings you to Aspen alone at Christmas?" he asked as we returned our equipment. When I gave him the condensed version of my family situation, he nodded in understanding. "I get it. I'm avoiding my own family drama this year too." "What's your story?" I asked, surprised by his candor. "My parents' divorce was finalized in November after 30 years of marriage," he explained. "Neither wants to spend the holiday without me, but I refuse to choose sides, so here I am, working through Christmas and disappointing everyone equally." His self-deprecating humor made me laugh. "At least you're democratic about it." "Exactly," he grinned. "Equal opportunity boundary setting." We discovered we were both staying in the same cabin community, and he offered to show me some of the local spots that tourists typically missed. That is, if you're not committed to the solo Christmas experience, he added quickly. I think my solo Christmas mission has been accomplished, I said. I proved to myself I could do it. I wouldn't mind some local insight now. That evening, Ryan introduced me to a small family-owned restaurant tucked away from the main tourist areas. The owners, an Italian couple who'd moved to Colorado 20 years earlier, treated every guest like family. The restaurant was filled with other Christmas orphans, as Elena, the matriarch, called us, people spending the holiday away from traditional family gatherings for various reasons. Every year more people come, she told me as she refilled our wine glasses. Not everyone has perfect family, you know, sometimes better to make new tradition. Ryan and I were joined by 2 other solo travelers and a young couple who'd eloped to Aspen against their family's wishes. As we shared stories over Elena's incredible homemade pasta, I realized we'd created a makeshift community, one bound not by obligation or shared DNA, but by the simple human desire for connection. I posted a few photos to my social media: stunning mountain vistas, my cozy fireside setup, and one of me triumphantly standing on skis. I deliberately kept the captions neutral: Aspen Christmas and first time skiing, didn't break anything Within minutes my phone was buzzing with responses. Friends expressed admiration for my solo adventure. Colleagues wished me happy holidays. Natalie commented, living for this energy. My Aunt Rachel posted, now that's how you do Christmas, so proud of you. My family's reactions were more mixed. Sarah liked the skiing photo but didn't comment. My mother remained silent. Emma sent a private message, the kids miss you, hope it's worth it. My father, in his typically straightforward way, commented, looks beautiful. Stay safe on those slopes. As midnight approached, Ryan walked me back to my cabin. Was it weird, spending Christmas Day away from your family for the first time? He asked. I considered the question carefully. Less weird than I expected, I admitted. More liberating. I love my family, but I've spent so many years trying to be what they needed that I lost sight of what I needed. He nodded in understanding. It's the oxygen mask principle. What do you mean? You know how on airplanes they tell you to put on your own oxygen mask before helping others? He explained. You can't be there for anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself first. The analogy resonated deeply. For years I'd been trying to help everyone with their oxygen masks while slowly suffocating myself. Exactly, I agreed, though my family would probably say I'm being selfish. There's a big difference between being selfish and practicing self-care, Ryan pointed out. One is about disregarding others' needs, the other is about honoring your own alongside theirs. His insight stayed with me long after we said goodnight. As I lay in bed that night watching snowflakes drift past my window, I reflected on the day. My first solo Christmas had been nothing like the lonely, miserable experience my family had predicted. Instead, it had been filled with new experiences, meaningful connections, and most importantly, a profound sense of peace that came from honoring my own needs and desires. This Christmas, for the first time in my adult life, I hadn't spent the holiday anticipating everyone else's needs, mediating conflicts, or exhausting myself trying to create perfect memories for others at the expense of my own enjoyment. Instead, I'd created a holiday that nourished my spirit and brought me joy. As I drifted toward sleep, I realized that was perhaps the greatest gift I could have given myself, not just a ski trip or a luxury cabin, but the permission to prioritize my own happiness without guilt or apology. Whatever happened with my family when I returned home, that gift would remain with me. January in Seattle brought its characteristic endless rain, but for once, the gray skies couldn't dampen my spirits. I returned from Aspen with more than just skiing memories and photos. I came back with a newfound sense of self-worth that radiated from within. My colleagues noticed it immediately. There's something different about you, Kevin remarked during our first team meeting of the year. That vacation clearly did you good. He wasn't the only one who noticed the change. My friend Natalie joked that I needed a t-shirt that said New Year, New Boundaries as we caught up over coffee. Seriously though, she added, studying my face, you look lighter somehow, like you set down a heavy backpack you've been carrying for years. Her analogy was surprisingly accurate. I did feel lighter, free from the weight of constant people-pleasing and the exhaustion of putting everyone else's needs before my own. But I also knew the hardest part was still ahead, redefining my relationships with my family in the wake of my Christmas rebellion. The radio silence from Ohio had continued through New Year's, broken only by my father's occasional texts checking in and my nieces and nephews' messages thanking me for their gifts. My mother and siblings seemed determined to freeze me out until I apologized, which I had no intention of doing. The standoff ended unexpectedly in mid-January when my phone rang with my sister Sarah's number. I answered cautiously, bracing for another round of guilt-tripping or accusation. "Hey," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "Do you have a minute to talk?" "Of course," I replied, surprised by her tone. There was a long pause before she continued. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since Christmas, and I owe you an apology." Of all the things I'd expected her to say, an apology wasn't even on the list. "You do. We really were planning to use you as free childcare," she admitted quietly. "I didn't want to see it that way, but that's exactly what we were doing. It wasn't fair, and I'm sorry." Her unexpected accountability nearly brought me to tears. "Thank you for saying that, Sarah. It means a lot." "Dad helped me see it," she continued. "He pointed out how we never included you in the adult activities, how we just assumed you'd watch the kids whenever it was convenient for us. When he put it that way, well, I felt pretty awful." "I never minded helping with the kids," I clarified. "I love spending time with them. I just wanted to be asked, not told, and to have my time valued the same way yours is." "I get that now," she said, "and I'm going to do better, I promise." Our conversation marked the beginning of a gradual thawing. Over the next few weeks, my relationships with family members began to shift in subtle but significant ways. Brian's approach to reconciliation was less direct. Rather than explicitly apologizing, he called asking for marketing advice for his business, a genuine acknowledgement of my professional expertise that he'd never shown before. By the end of the call, he casually mentioned, "The boys have been asking about you. Maybe we could set up a regular video chat time. No pressure, just if you want to." His small effort to connect on my terms rather than demanding I conform to his expectations signaled a willingness to establish a healthier dynamic. Emma took longer to come around. Her initial texts were still tinged with passive-aggressive comments about how difficult Christmas had been without me, but even she eventually extended an olive branch, sending me a link to an article about setting healthy family boundaries with the message, "This made me think of you." Still learning but trying to understand. My mother proved the most resistant to change. When she finally called in February, her greeting was cool. "Well, I hope your ski vacation was worth hurting everyone's feelings." Rather than rising to the bait, I responded calmly, "It was worth learning to value myself, Mom. I hope someday you can understand that." "I understand that family should come first," she countered. "I am part of this family," I reminded her gently. "That means my needs matter too." Though she didn't explicitly acknowledge my point, the fact that she was speaking to me at all represented progress. By the end of our conversation, she'd even invited me to visit when you can fit it into your schedule, a small but meaningful recognition of my autonomy. In late February, I flew to Ohio for a weekend visit, the first time seeing my family in person since the Christmas conflict. I deliberately booked a hotel rather than staying at my parents' house, another boundary that raised eyebrows but wasn't directly challenged. The family dinner that first night was initially tense, with conversation carefully navigating around potentially controversial topics, but as the evening progressed and wine flowed, my mother finally addressed the elephant in the room. "I still don't understand why you couldn't have just told us you were feeling taken advantage of," she said, her hurt evident despite her attempt at a casual tone. "You didn't have to cancel Christmas entirely." "I did try to tell you, Mom," I reminded her. "When I joined that video call and heard you all planning my time without consulting me, I expressed how that made me feel. But instead of acknowledging those feelings, everyone tried to minimize them and convince me I was overreacting." "We were just trying to include you in our Christmas plans," she insisted. "No," my father interjected gently. "We were trying to include her help in our Christmas plans. There's a difference, Margaret." My mother's lips tightened, but she didn't argue the point. "I don't want to rehash everything," I said, looking around the table at my siblings and parents. "What I want is for us to establish some new ground rules going forward." "Like what?" Sarah asked, surprisingly receptive. "Like equal distribution of childcare responsibilities at family gatherings," I began. "Everyone takes turns, including the parents. Like respecting everyone's time and preferences when making plans. Like advanced planning with clear expectations instead of last-minute assumptions. And most importantly, no assumptions about my availability just because I don't have children." Brian looked skeptical. "That sounds complicated." "It's actually not," I countered. "It's just treating each other with basic respect and consideration." "I think Madison's requests are reasonable," my father supported. "We're all adults here. We can manage to plan gatherings that allow everyone to both contribute and enjoy themselves." The conversation wasn't easy. and not everyone was equally receptive to my boundaries. My mother remained guarded, occasionally making comments about how things used to be when family members didn't need formal agreements to help each other. Brian fluctuated between genuine understanding and defensive pushback. But Sarah and, surprisingly, Emma seemed to genuinely hear me. "I never really thought about how we were treating you," Emma admitted. "I was so caught up in my own chaos with 4 kids that I just took advantage of your willingness to help. That wasn't fair." The funny thing is, I told them, if you'd approached me differently, asked instead of assumed, included me in the adult activities sometimes, acknowledged the value of my time, I probably would have happily helped with the kids anyway. It was the assumption and dismissal that hurt. As the weekend progressed, I noticed subtle changes in family dynamics. When the kids needed supervision during Saturday's lunch, my mother actually created a schedule that rotated all the adults, including herself, through kid watching duty in 30-minute increments. Sarah invited me to join her for a manicure appointment rather than automatically assuming I'd watch her children while she went. Even Brian made a point of asking me about my career and seeming genuinely interested in my response. Not every relationship improved equally. My mother remained somewhat distant, clearly still hurt by what she perceived as my rejection of family tradition. Some cousins who'd been vocal in their criticism of my Christmas decision maintained a cool politeness rather than genuine warmth. But others, particularly my younger cousins in their 20s, seemed to view me with newfound respect, even asking private advice about setting their own boundaries. The most meaningful moment came unexpectedly as I was preparing to leave on Sunday. My 12-year-old niece Lily pulled me aside to show me something she'd made, a small scrapbook titled Independent Women. Inside were pictures she'd cut from magazines of women climbing mountains, traveling solo, starting businesses, and living joyfully on their own terms. "Your Christmas trip inspired me," she explained shyly. "Mom says I'm too young to travel alone, but someday I want to be brave like you." Her words brought tears to my eyes. In choosing to honor my own needs rather than succumbing to family pressure, I had inadvertently modeled a powerful lesson for the next generation. The thought that my small act of self-advocacy might help Lily and her cousins grow into adults who valued themselves enough to set healthy boundaries was profoundly moving. Back in Seattle, I continued nurturing my unexpected connection with Ryan from Aspen. What had begun as a Christmas Day companionship had evolved into regular video chats and text exchanges. He was planning a trip to Seattle in the spring, and I found myself looking forward to seeing him again with an excitement that surprised me. As Easter approached, my family began tentatively planning the next holiday gathering. To my surprise, my input was explicitly requested rather than my participation simply assumed. The email thread included specific questions about my availability, preferences, and expectations. When childcare was discussed, it was in terms of a fair rotation that included all adults rather than defaulting to me. I booked my flight with a mixture of hope and caution. I harbored no illusions that one Christmas revelation had permanently transformed my family dynamics. Building healthier relationships would be an ongoing process, with progress and setbacks along the way. But for the first time, I was approaching a family gathering on equal footing as a full participant whose time and preferences were valued, not just as the reliable helper who could be counted on to sacrifice her own enjoyment for others. My Aunt Rachel called when she heard I'd booked my Easter flight. "Brave woman," she teased, diving back into the family circus so soon. "It's different this time," I told her. "I'm different." "That's what matters," she said approvingly. "Keep those boundaries strong, Madison. The family adapts or they don't, but you stay true to yourself either way." Looking back on my Christmas rebellion from the perspective of several months' distance, I could see clearly how necessary it had been, not just for that one holiday, but for the health of my relationships moving forward. By choosing myself that Christmas, by creating space for joy on my own terms. As the Coopers had put it, I had initiated a fundamental shift in how I engaged with my family, and more importantly, how I valued myself. The most unexpected gift of that solo Christmas wasn't the skiing lessons or the luxury cabin or even the newfound friendship with Ryan. It was the discovery that I could honor my own needs without the world ending, that standing up for myself, while temporarily uncomfortable, ultimately led to more authentic and respectful relationships, that the Madison who set healthy boundaries was actually more present and loving than the Madison who exhausted herself trying to please everyone. As spring bloomed in Seattle, I found myself contemplating the next Christmas, still months away. Would I join my family, now that our relationships were slowly healing, or would I create a new tradition, perhaps inviting Natalie or even Ryan to join me for another mountain getaway? The beauty of my newfound independence was that I didn't have to decide yet. For the first time in my adult life, I was approaching holidays as opportunities for joy rather than obligation, and that perspective alone was worth every difficult conversation and uncomfortable moment of standing my ground. My story isn't about abandoning family or rejecting tradition. It's about finding the courage to value yourself enough to set healthy boundaries even when that means changing plans that others have made for you. It's about recognizing that love shouldn't require constant self-sacrifice, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do both for yourself and ultimately for your relationships is to honor your own needs alongside others. So if you're struggling with similar family dynamics, or if you've ever felt taken for granted by the people who should value you most, I hope my experience gives you courage. Creating space for joy on your own terms isn't selfish, it's necessary, and while changing the established patterns might initially cause conflict, the healthier relationships that can emerge on the other side are worth it. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members, or have you spent a holiday alone by choice rather than obligation? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more about my journey navigating family dynamics and self-discovery. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is permission to change your plans when they no longer serve you. Until next time, this is Madison Parker, wishing you holidays filled with authentic joy, whether you spend them with family, friends, or in the peaceful company of your own wonderful self.